Welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's Community Talk Show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and we're happy today to have Ricky Davidson on the show. Ricky is the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club here on Flat Street, right downtown, where he's worked for over 14 years. He also serves on many local boards. He has been the president of the BUHS School Board, as well as the chair of the Recreation and Parks Department. He's recently become a vestry member of St. Michael's Episcopal Church. So welcome, Ricky.
Thanks, Wendy. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm very glad you're here, too. There are so many things to talk about the Boys and Girls Club, and so many fabulous things that you guys do. But first, it would be interesting, I think, for a little bit for folks to hear where you came from and how you got here.
Yeah, I was born in New Hampshire, over in Nashua, New Hampshire, and I'm a military brat, so I like to say that I'm from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. We moved around a lot. On my 18th birthday, we were moving into my 18th house. And then after college, I worked in community mental health for a couple of years and doing things in the community with folks. And I decided I wanted to have a hospital experience, to work in a psychiatric facility in a hospital. And that's how I get to Brattleboro. I did some research around what are some of the best places to work in the psychiatric field in a hospital setting, and the Brattleboro retreat came up a lot. And I like New England, so I thought, all right, and I didn't go to college too far from here, so I was like, all right, let's go to Brattleboro. And I thought I'd be here for a year or 2 years, and that was in 1995, and I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. So.
And you've been at the Boys and Girls Club for over
14 years.
Over 14 years, right? Coming to Brattleboro, and did you go right to the retreat?
Yeah, I worked right at the retreat. I started working at the retreat as a hospital-wide float, so I really got a real jump in 2 feet into all kinds of different mental health issues, and worked all over the hospital. So I got to do a little bit of everything, which was great. And after a few months of that, I decided I wanted to focus more, and I always wanted to work with kids and teens. So I went to Tyler 3, and I worked on Tyler 3 for about 3.5 years.
Can you tell us what Tyler 3 is?
Tyler 3 was at the time, and I think it still is was the acute adolescent inpatient unit. So it was locked door adolescent inpatient unit. So it was for some of the kids with some of the more severe issues that they were dealing with. And I worked with some fabulous people up there and felt like I did really good work for a long time on that floor. It was great. And then I transitioned from Tyler 3 to the residential programs. I wanted to do some more longer term work with young people. So I went to girls residential for a few months, and then they asked me to become the house charge of the boys residential program. So I did that for a number of years.
Is that still happening?
They still have residential programs. Yep, longer term, and now they're in houses. So it's much more like a home setting, as opposed to at the time when I worked there. It was much more. It was on one of the more, almost like a hospital floor, but it was a residential program, so it was structured differently than an inpatient floor. But it was more. But now it's more of a house setting, which is nice. You know, I supervised staff, and I kind of helped oversee treatment and things like that the young people were doing. I still go back and do some classes with the residential teens that are there, that are in longer term care. So I go back and do some stuff there, and I still have friends that work there. So I get to hear that, you know, some of the changes and some of the differences. You've
got a skill set. You went in with a skill set. You've obviously created many more skills that you have in your toolbox, but you're dealing those are tough cases you were dealing with. Probably some of the hardest you could imagine.
Yeah, you know, really young kids and teens with some real severe issues, and there was times that it was really hard, and you go home and you want to just cry or you know, whatever, and it's difficult. But I feel like I have in my head, I have some real successes. That I hang on to, that were real positive things that we really made a difference. Yeah,
difficult stories that you go home with, that you have found ways of armoring yourself or dealing with them. But there's still some that certainly must sketch you.
Oh yeah, and they do, and they break my heart, and you know, and I still see some of that today in the work that I do now too. There's cases that always kind of pull at your heartstrings and make you wonder, what's the next thing I can do that can be a little bit more helpful or a little bit better.
Right. And it seems to me that the Boys and Girls Club itself, in and of itself, is what that is. It's a real sanctuary for a lot of kids, and a home away from home?
Yeah, that's what they say. That's what the kids say. The
Do
kids say that this is my home away from home. This is my, when I'm not at home, this is where I feel the most at home. And for some of them, they feel more at home almost at the club than they do other places.
Yeah, oh, I believe
great.
that's true. And they also have their peer groups as well.
Yeah, and they have their friends, and they have staff that they're connected to, and a real connection to the place and to what goes on there.
Just to back up a little bit, I know that for a period of time you were foster parenting as well.
Yeah, I did that in the late 90s and early 2000s. My roommate and I decided to do some foster care. So we did long-term foster care with teens. And it was a fabulous experience. I had never been a parent before, and so being a parent of a teenager all of a sudden, you know, those of you that are parents, imagine you kind of grow into being a parent of a teenager. You don't just become a parent of a teenager. And so it was a different experience.
Even though you'd worked with adolescents.
It's different living with them and being with them 24/7 and being all of the decision making related to what's going on with them and things like that.
At that time, what were you doing as a job?
I was working at the retreat.
You were at the retreat then.
Yeah.
You're getting it from all sides.
And in some ways I was, but it was always great too, because it with my own kids, and I call them my kids, the ones I live in home to, I got to see a different side of some things that were going on. I mean, kids go into custody for a variety of different reasons.
That's right.
And you have to deal with all of those different reasons for them going into custody. But at the same time too, you get to see, over years you got to see some real positive connections, and I mean, I had two boys at the same time for a while, and they were in the same grade, and they had them all the way through high school. And when they graduated from high school, that year there was only 2 kids in state's custody that went away to college that following fall, and they were both mine.
Wow.
So it was like, you get to see them really spread their wings and go off and follow their dreams and do the things that they wanted to do. Was really impressive.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And you've continued to be a presenter for DCF about foster care.
Yeah, I go in and help teach some classes when they're training new foster parents. And we, I go in and talk about what it's like to have teenagers and the questions that they ask and some of the struggles and the things that are going on today, because, everybody remembers maybe when they were a teenager and the issues that they were dealing with, but things are different in 2019 than they were in the 90s or the 80s or the 70s or whenever it was that maybe they were dealing with it. So kind of giving them up to date what's going on with teenagers today.
When you first started working at Tyler 3 at the retreat, was there much of an opioid crisis going on at that point?
There wasn't.
There wasn't.
It was before opioids became a thing. I mean, there was drug issues, and there was young people that came in with addiction issues and drug issues, but it was not the same. It wasn't the opioid crisis that we're dealing with today.
And so therefore there was less children in homelessness.
Yeah, that's really a thing I would say from the last 10 years that's really built up, which is after I left that line of work.
Right. And you see this at the Boys and Girls Club too.
Yeah. We see families and young people that either if they know somebody who's struggling with opioid addiction and issues, whether it's their immediate family, extended family, friends, neighbors. The wonderful thing about Brattleboro is it's a small community. At the same time too, we have a lot of big city issues.
Yes, we do.
In a small community, and so the kids today are dealing with those big city issues in a small community.
And do you do like roundtables with the kids about this kind of thing?
We do programs around this kind of stuff all the time with kids. So whether it's we do programs like we call Teen Talk, and it can be kind of whatever kind of issues that they want to talk about and information that they want to get. So it could be around drug-related issues. It could be around relationship kinds of issues. It could be around, STI protection or birth control, or the importance of decision making that they make, all kinds of decision making issues and things like that.
It brings us a little bit to staff.
I have great staff. I mean, most of our staff are part-time because they're doing other things, but they're really dedicated. We have there's 13 adult staff that work at the club on Flat Street, and then we also have junior staff, which are high school students that work with us.
I love that.
It's great. The high school kids that work for us, the junior staff, they are club kids. So they came to the club, and these are jobs that every kid wants, but they can't apply for them. What it is we say to them, we're looking for new junior staff, you show yourself to be a decent role model to kids. Is this something you'd want to do? And some of them say, no, I don't want to have to tell my friends what to do. And others are like, I would totally want to do that. And we have a little bit of a training program, and it really is a program for them. For a lot of them, it's their first job. You know, I don't know about you. My first job was working in a grocery store, bagging groceries, shagging carts. You know, I worked in fast food. I did those kinds of things. For the junior staff, this is their first job. And for some of them, it's the only job they have until they go off to school or become an adult and do their own thing.
Did they get paid?
Yep, it's a paid job, yeah.
That's wonderful. I mean, you have so many different things going on that kids can take part in, and a lot of leadership programs. And I know that, and the summer camps as well, but you have Torch Club, Keystone Club, and then there's Youth of the Year that comes up. So can you talk a little bit about those? So we have two major leadership programs that happen during the year. Torch Club, which is our preteen leadership group, and then Keystone, which is our teen leadership group. And both of those groups do community service projects in the club and in the community. They also do programs and workshops and activities as social events for their age group. So they plan sleepovers and parties and dances and things like that. They also learn about what it is to be a leader in their community, and they get to start with the small community within the club, and we hope that they expand that into the bigger community. And the Keystone kids also get to go to conferences regionally and nationally. We've gone to national conferences. You know, they've gone to Orlando, Florida, and Atlanta, Georgia, and things like that for national conferences, which is a real good experience. You know, last summer we had our Keystone Club went to Atlanta for the National Keystone Conference, and they were getting onto the plane, and for a few of them, it was the first time they'd ever been in an airport, let alone been on a plane. Wow.
So right there alone, that was worth going.
Yes, that's right.
You know, just to give them that experience. But then they also got to meet kids from all over the world who are just like them, just in a different place. And got to do really cool workshops around leadership in different ways, which is really great.
When my daughter was, I think, in middle school, the Teen Center started in that space. And then at some point, it became the Boys and Girls Club. Can you talk about that transition?
Yeah, so it was the Teen Center for a number of years right there on Flat Street. And it had a local advisory board of adults who kind of oversaw it and supervised it and tried to make it the best that it could. And they realized that we needed to step up the game a little bit and be a little bit more connected to maybe a national organization or ways to get resources and training and quality staff and programming. And they did a lot of research, and they realized that Boys and Girls Club was the way to go. It fit well with the community. It fit well with what the young people in our community needed. And so in 1999, we officially became chartered as a Boys and Girls Club. So this year we're celebrating our 20th anniversary. So we're going to have later this year, we're going to have some celebration things and things like that to kind of roll out to celebrate 20 years in the community. But we still have a local board of directors that are all local people. Boys and Girls Club runs sort of like a franchise. So we're part of Boys and Girls Club. There's certain things we have to do to be a Boys and Girls Club. And then there's things we can pick and choose to do that meet the needs of the youth in our community. And they have great resources and trainings. And they really, our staff are professional staff because of what Boys and Girls Club wants them to do, wants them to know, and wants them to experience.
In addition to all of this, you have a licensed after-school childcare program.
Yeah, this is our third school year of doing it. So we're a licensed after-school childcare program for kids ages 6 until they turn 10. They can stay after 10 until they finish elementary school if they want to, or the family wants to, but they have more options at 10. And it's a licensed program, so we have to meet all the requirements of a licensed program. We also pick up or have transportation from the 3 elementary schools in Brattleboro. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, it's transportation's one of the biggest issues that we face for young people in our community. Because we're so rural, being able to transport is important. So we have a minibus that picks up at Oak Grove every day and brings to Flat Street. We have staff that walk up to Green Street every day and walk down with kids from Green Street. And then this year we worked it out with the bus company, the school bus company, and we're the last stop on one of the runs from Academy School. So the Academy School bus stops right in front of the club and drops off kids.
That's terrific.
So all kinds of kids get to this club that way.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful.
And it's wonderful also because there's so many things that you do there. It's not just an after-school program where, you know, there are a lot of kids who do things together, but you have all kinds of different things, including an indoor skate park.
An indoor skate park, yeah. We, you know, about half of our building on Flat Street is an indoor skate park. So that's a lot of space that goes over to that for skateboarding and rollerblading. And it's funny when we talk to our national organization, you know, a lot of people who grew up around Boys and Girls Clubs think, oh, it's a gymnasium, maybe it's a pool. And there are Boys and Girls Clubs all over the country that have full-size gyms and have pools. Our building, being what our building has all the things it's been, we don't have room for a full-size gym. We don't have a pool, but we're the only one club in the entire country with a full indoor skate park.
That's incredibly wonderful.
We're the only one. So they like to call us the most unique club in the chain out of the 4,000 plus clubs across the country, because we, you know, not only do we have an indoor skate park that nobody else has, but, you know, our building started its life as a parking garage. It's spent over 20 years as a nightclub. You know, no other club says that and can say that, so it's great.
Yeah, walking into the club, you know, you get a real feel for all of these different, not only all the different things the kids can do, but the spaces, there are little niches that you can go off and read, and you have a little library upstairs.
Yeah, we have the library, we have a computer lab, we have a wonderful music room and performance stage area, a small climbing wall, weight room, bike shop, all kinds of things that are there. And our kids, when they go to other Boys and Girls Clubs that are maybe newer and shinier and a little bit more maybe flashier, they always feel like, it doesn't feel as homey as our club does. Our club feels homey.
It does. And you've also got a food bar there too.
Yeah, we have we do a snack bar. So we do a free snack every day, but there's also snacks that kids can purchase for themselves. We also do free dinner every night.
Wow.
So we do free meals every night, 6 nights of the week, free dinners to youth and families. So we do about 250 meals a week.
Wow.
That we serve. So we do free snacks every day after school, but then we also feed people every night.
That's remarkable. I did not know that part.
Yeah.
Either. That's amazing.
It's and that was started off really small when we always did snack, and then we had some kids that were starting to load up on snack at the end of a day, or they were trying to sneak extra snack to take home. And when we talked to them, we found out they were going home and there wasn't going to be dinner, and there might not be food over the weekend and things like that. And we're like, okay, we got to do something different. And at the time, we didn't even have a kitchen, so we did everything in a crock pot and a microwave at first, and we just did our best to feed kids. And now we have a kitchen, and we have a kitchen coordinator who plans the meals and cooks the food, and the kids help cooking the food sometimes too, which is great. And everybody eats, and we eat family style. So the staff are eating with the kids, and
so
there are parents that come and eat with their kids too. So everybody sits together and eats, and it's a real connection and a real family kind of thing.
You know, I got to say that it's kind of mind-blowing to me. You know, so many of us in the community, of course, know about the Boys and Girls Club, but I had no idea the extent to which you're serving these kids and their families. And time-wise as well, it's 6 days a week,
6 days. We do 6 days a week. We're every day after school and hours on Saturdays. We also do teen night every Friday night from 6 to 11 at night, so it's teens only after 6 p.m. And then when there's school vacations and teacher in-service days and things like that, we extend our time. So we do all day for the younger kids program, so families that need to work and need childcare, they have someplace where they can send their young kid all day. And then we open at noon for the older kids, the teenagers, who it's about the time they want to roll out of bed anyway on a day off from school. And then we're there until 7 o'clock at night.
You also have a very big alumni network too.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we've been around for 20 years now. We do have a lot of we have alumni, and we're now getting to the point where when I first started working at the club, some of the kids that were teenagers or even preteens, when I first started working at the club 14 years ago, are now their kids are coming to the club. And that's a pretty remarkable thing that I'm not sure I feel okay with feeling that old, but at the same time too, it's great to we're there, and the parents don't hesitate, you know, and the parents, those alumni are our best advertising for all things that we do.
They sure are.
Even though things have changed maybe since they were there, we do different things, we do more things, we do a different variety of things, but the place is still the same and is really important.
How about the number of kids? Has that changed much over the years?
No. Average daily attendance fluctuates, depends on the day of the week. Anywhere from 50 to 80 kids a day. On a teen night, a busy teen night, we might have 110 or 120 kids in the building.
Wow.
So it depends. Depends on what's going on in the community, but also at the club.
Yeah.
You know, if we have a different activity going on, it might bring in some kids that don't come all the time or whatever.
And in general, do you see a pretty good cross-section of kids?
Yeah, we really do. That's one of the things that's really remarkable is that some people have a perception that the club is just there for the kids that are underprivileged or the kids that don't have resources. And yes, we're definitely there for them, but we're there, every kid is welcome at the club, you know. And one of the things that I say, especially to new staff when they're first coming on board, is I say to them all the time that all of our kids are special, but everyone's the same. So we always try to find what's special about that one kid and what makes them the same as everybody else, and we treat them the same as everybody else. So there's no differentiation between those kids.
Yeah.
So we find that special thing about them. We try to help highlight that for them. And at the same time too, we don't treat them any differently.
Yeah.
And we have kids, you know, I see it all the time where there's a kid who comes from a family that struggles and that may not always know if the lights are going to be on tonight when they go home, and not always sure about where their meals are coming from. And they might be there with their best friend who's a kid who's never wanted for anything, family's really stable, and you know, all of those kinds of things. But when they're at the club, you can't tell which one's which.
Yeah, and they become friends.
And they're friends, and they play together, and they do activities together, and they support each other.
Where you're located down on Flat Street, you've got kind of a little neighborhood there with the Latches and Sam's and Experience Goods and hemp stores there. And I know that when Irene came through, you guys kind of banded together.
We did. I mean, we've always been sort of Flat Street down there. We all knew each other anyway. But when Irene happened, you know, Flat Street got hit really hard. And it was almost 8 years ago now, but it doesn't always feel that way when we think about it. Because when it happened, you know, everybody showed up and banded together to help clean each other out and dry each other out and get everything re-going. And we did. And, you know, whether it was we're pulling stuff out of the basement for people, or we're helping to, you know, dry things out and get mud out of places and cleaning mud, we did all that.
Yeah.
And we did it together as a community down on Flat Street. And we really are a community down there, and we keep an eye on each other too, which is really nice.
That's great to hear.
It's the neighborhood that is the way neighborhoods are supposed to be.
Right.
And Flat Street is really one of those.
In addition to having such a strong neighborhood, you also have real connection and communication with everything from the agencies, from DCF on, to the police and the fire station too.
Yeah.
Downtown.
It's phenomenal. I mean, we're really part of the community in that way. And you know, the police over the years, you know, they used to not come in the building, or they only came in the building when there was a problem. So there was this perception, and the kids, you know, would see an officer come in and get scared. And you know, we really worked hard with the police to be like, you know, if you're out doing a foot patrol and you want to come on in, come on in. And they come in. And just the other day I was walking through the building, and there was a police officer playing basketball with kids on the basketball court, you know, shooting some hoops.
Yeah.
Or they might be sitting down having snack with kids when kids are having snack, or just checking with them. And the kids that are there all the time, it's becoming normalized. And the police have said to me that it's really nice that when they're out in the community, they'll see some of the kids that they recognize from the club someplace else, and the kid's not afraid of them. The kid says hi to them. They could say hi to the kid. And it really makes that community connection that the police are part of our community.
Yes.
And these kids are part of the community, and we're all in this together,
Yeah.
you know, which is really, really wonderful. And the police really enjoy it. They love coming in, seeing what's going on, seeing what the kids are doing. And the kids have really appreciated it. And, you know, and they get to ask a lot of interesting questions from the police
I'll
too,
bet they do.
which is great. You know, that they feel comfortable enough to ask those questions. It used to, when they first started coming in, they would scatter, and now they spend some time.
They're creating relationships, so the
Yeah.
police know the kids as they're growing up in the community, and know what the home life is like, and know what the kids are like. And going back a little bit to the alumni and the different relationships that kids have with each other. I know that a few years ago you had a real tough one, speaking of tough times. Nick.
Yeah, Nick, club alumni, really well known in the community, and he was walking on the train tracks over by the bridge by Putney Road, the railroad bridge on Putney Road, and an unfortunate accident happened, and he was hit by the train, and he passed away. And that's sad, and we've had members that have passed away before for a variety of different reasons. But this was really like, Nick was one of the happiest, sweetest, give you the shirt off his back kind of person in the world. And he was always that way, even when he was a preteen at the club. And the alumni so band together that the day after Nick passed away, a group of the kids that were his friends when they were kids, they're adult men now, all came to town. Some of them live in the area, some of them don't, but they all came back to Brattleboro. And they went to where the accident happened, and they were walking around town, and then they didn't know where to go, and they showed up at the club. And I happened to be behind the front desk when they walked in, and they all walked in, and seeing these familiar faces, and some I hadn't seen in a lot of years was really sweet. And one of them just looked at me and said, and I'm going to get choked up, they said, "Ricky, we didn't know where else to go." And I was like, "Come in, you're home." And that's what they did. And they came in, and they walked around, and they reminisced a little bit. And then next thing I know, I'm looking over, and a couple of them were playing basketball with a couple of the kids that were in the building that day. And one of them was teaching another kid how to shoot a pool ball better. Like, if you hold the stick this way, it's going to be better. And the staff at the time came up to me, and they're like, "Ricky, who are these men, and what is going on?" Because none of them were there when they were kids. And I said, "They're all club alumni. They're fine. Let them do this." And the staff took a step back and let them kind of be the staff, be the adult mentors that day. And it was what those alumni needed. They needed to come home. They needed to feel important. They needed to do something with their energy. At the same time, too, our kids that were current members at the time got something remarkable from a group of men that they didn't even know.
That's right.
Which was wonderful.
It's part of a continuum,
very much so.
that they too now can carry as well.
Yeah.
The work that you guys do is phenomenal.
Thank you.
I mean, I just want to say, as part of the community, I'm just so glad you're here, and I'm so glad you have such a wonderful staff, and you're doing just things that this is what ties the community together. Yeah,
and it really is, and they. The young people that use the club on a daily basis or even infrequently, they feel like they're connected someplace, which is really important. And hopefully that connection goes into other parts of their lives, and we hope that all the time.
One thing I would like to mention is that every year there is a bike race called Going the Distance. Anybody can take part, and it's a big fundraiser for the Boys and Girls Club. It's a big fundraiser for us, It started off, Bob Nassau, local pediatrician. Shout out,
Bob. A lot of people know Dr. Bob in a lot of ways. He took care of a lot of kids over the years. He was a board member of ours at the time, and actually 10 years ago this year, because this is our 10th anniversary of Going the Distance, he wanted to celebrate his birthday by doing a fundraising bike ride, because he's a big bike rider. And there's multiple loops that people can do.
Wonderful.
And it really is the reason we can do summer programming. The fundraising that happens from the ride makes us available to have the summer camps that we do be affordable. It makes it so that the summer program we do for the older kids that aren't camp is something that we can keep the doors open and we can keep doing what we do. If it wasn't for that fundraiser that happens every June, it was something we wouldn't be able to continue doing what we do on the summertime.
Good information.
It's great stuff.
Great. Ricky, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This has been wonderful.
Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And thank you for being on the show.
Great, thank you.
Thanks to all of you for being with us today too. We have so many amazing organizations in town, and there's such incredible generosity in fundraising. And I think Boys and Girls Club is one that it's a great one to have on our radar. Anyone out there who is interested. Thanks. We'll be here next week, and I'm glad you're here with us today.